Hello friends, if you're new, welcome to my channel. If you're coming back, welcome back. I really do appreciate the patronage. Today's topic is the social and historical context of Daniel. There isn't much I need to say, so let's get on with the video. Many clues give us ideas about the social situation of the authors of Daniel, including Mesopotamian traditions in the narratives, the flavor of the court settings, along with using Aramaic, Akkadian, and Persian terms. Taken together, these suggest that the stories originated in Neo-Babylonian and Persian times. With the exception of Chapter 7, which depends on a judgment of redactional history, all other apocalypses are focused on the Antiochian crisis of 167 to 164 BCE and were certainly written in the vicinity of Jerusalem. Christians, this means that the book of Daniel has nothing to do with the future. When it comes to the authors, it is commonly assumed that they were connected to the court, and the four heroes represent the author's fantasy selves. But how realistic is it? The description of court life is superficial, and other details show at least some familiarity with Babylonian and Persian literary inscriptions. The heroes are shown as learned scribes and counselors, so it is quite possible that the writers were scribes in the diaspora. However, is it really plausible that they would be taught the literature and language of the Chaldeans? And would they really have positions in the bureaucracy in light of the scarcity of foreigners in the administrations, especially that of Persia? According to the Bible, the Judeans who were exiled in both 597 and 586 BCE comprised the upper classes, royals, nobles, and skilled artisans. Aside from the royal family being settled in Babylon, we have no evidence that other Jewish exiles settled in the capital, although we cannot rule it out. Most exiles settled in ethnic villages around the empire that needed to be redeveloped. The poor documentation from the 6th to 5th centuries BCE indicate that these Jews were mostly poor or of modest means. The Old Testament gives plenty of evidence for scribal traditions among the Babylonian exiles and in the Jewish diaspora. Primary evidence for this consists of the apocryphal books of 1st Enoch and the Aramaic Levi document, both written in Aramaic. Despite this, it remains unclear if the authors of Daniel served in the lower ranks of Babylonian institutions. Since the scribal profession was hereditary, it is possible that the scribes who composed Daniel 1 through 6 were the direct ancestors of those that wrote Daniel 8 through 12 during the Antiochian crisis. However, since the Danielic narratives were popular, it is more likely that these were written by separate groups. Scribes did not belong to the wealthiest social class. Their expertise was a kind of social capital that allowed them to wield cultural power. In the apocalyptic chapters, they not only demonstrate interpretive expertise, they also show knowledge of the political relationship that the Seleucid and Ptolemaic kingdoms had. Daniel 7 through 12 were written in response to the persecutions of the Jews by Antiochus IV, and even covered the beginning of the revolt of Judah the Maccabee. In order to fully understand this passage, It is vital to understand at least the bare bones of the historical context. To our knowledge, no historical account exists of Jerusalem surrendering to Alexander, but Josephus records a legend in which the high priest and Alexander meet, suggesting that the transition to Greek rule was peaceful. After Alexander's death in 323, his generals divided his kingdom amongst themselves. A treaty in 301 gave Syria-Palestine to Seleucus I, who also ruled Mesopotamia at the time. However, Ptolemy I, who had already established his kingdom in Egypt, occupied Syria-Palestine at the time and refused to surrender it to Seleucus. 5 wars over the next century were fought between these kingdoms for control of the area. Judea was not directly involved until the Fifth Syrian War, when Jerusalem saw combat in 201 to 200 BCE. By and large, Jews handled their own affairs during the Ptolemaic period, and the high priest served as political as well as religious leader and handled the relationship with the Ptolemaic overlords, including collecting and paying taxes. An elite group of aristocrats had various roles in governing the temple and Jerusalem. Although these families intermarried, they were at times bitter rivals, which played a major part in the events that preceded the Antiochian crisis in 167. However, the crisis had its roots in 3rd century conflicts over authority for tax collection. People refer to the system of taxation as tax farming. A local official was authorized to collect and pay the taxes, and said local official was allowed to keep any extra money. The flaw in this is obvious. The high priest was initially appointed for Judea, but a dispute among Ptolemaic officials allowed a foreigner to take over. The new regime gave Jewish aristocrats incentives to become well-versed in Greek culture, mostly to take advantage of economic opportunities. They would need to know Greek and Jewish cultures, as well as being fluent in Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. During this time, loyalty was largely based on the sense of who was likely to retain power. Thus, support of Ptolemaic and Seleucids was fluid. During the Fifth Syrian War, the Jerusalem authorities supported Antiochus III, even supplying him with troops and provisions. As it turned out, he won in 198 and offered rebuilding support and tax concessions, as well as assurances that the Jews could continue to conduct their own internal affairs. Thus, the Seleucid period in Judea started well, at least for Jerusalem's aristocracy, who benefited the most from the tax breaks. However, Hellenistic kingdoms were always short of money, and the economic situation was made worse when Rome insisted on compensation for checking the Syrian aggression at the Battle of Magnesia in 189. At this time, temples often served as banking establishments also, so appropriating provincial funds often involved religious trespass, either through violence or legal means. The first documented evidence of this in Jerusalem happened sometime between 178 and 175. Heliodorus, a high-ranking Seleucid official, was sent to put in place a new temple policy that some Jews interpreted as an assault on the temple. I know this is a rather odd place to stop, but I do want to stop here so I can cover the Antiochian crisis and the events that led up to the Antiochian crisis in the next episode. If you like this kind of content, hit the like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, email, and PayPal links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this episode. Please leave comments in the comment section as they trigger the YouTube algorithm. Not only that, but I really do love hearing from each and every one of you. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, goodbye.